Today, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about how to prepare your lawnmower for the winter season ahead, aka winterizing. Now, you may not need to perform every single maintenance task shown in this video. So at the very least, 1. Replace your air filter, 2. Replace your spark plug, and then 3. Fill your tank with gas and stabilizer fluid. Doing these 3 things will help to prevent corrosion from occurring in your lawnmower and help you get started in the springtime a whole lot faster. First things first, changing the air filter. Now this one's pretty straightforward. There is a black box on the side of most push mowers with a single screw on the top of it. Remove that screw and out will pop the air filter. Now in the video, mine looks really clean, and that's because I had just placed it maybe a week or 2 before doing this video, so obviously yours is going to be a lot dirtier. Next up is changing the spark plug. To do so, you want to remove the cap covering the spark plug and then use a deep socket wrench to remove it, or in my case, vice grips. Again, you can pick up spark plugs at your local home improvement store, and those will run anywhere from about $3 to $10. Next up, time to change the oil. Most modern lawnmowers have a bolt on the bottom which allows you to drain the oil from there versus pouring it out of the top like I'm doing. Some lawnmowers may or may not have that. You may want to check your manual to make sure you're not removing something important, thinking it's the drain plug. Additionally, there are extractor kits you can buy which allow you to pump the oil out of the lawnmower, but I really don't think that's necessary, so we're just going to do it with the tip and pour method. All you need here is an oil pan or something else to catch the old oil in, and then a little plastic Ziploc bag. If there's still gas in the lawnmower, you'll want to remove the cap and then place the Ziploc bag over the threads, and then put the cap back on and screw it on tightly. The Ziploc bag acts as kind of a gasket to help prevent gas from leaking out of the lawnmower. Next, just tip the lawnmower over and pour the old oil out. As you can see in the video, the oil coming out of the lawnmower is a little milky, indicating there might have been some moisture inside of it while they're sitting dormant maybe last winter or the year before. So if you see this, you might want to do a sort of flush with the oil, and that's basically running through this process twice. Put the new oil in, run the lawnmower for about 10 to 15 minutes, drain that oil back out, and then fill it back up again with fresh oil. Now the next question that a lot of people are probably asking is 1, what kind of oil do I put in? And 2, how much do I put in? Most lawnmowers nowadays require anywhere from about 16 to 24 ounces of 10W30 or 5W30 oil. Yes, you can use car engine oil. It's going to work the same. It's 10W30 is 10W30. The only difference might be some additives in the lawnmower oil for something like low smoke. Otherwise, as long as you have a 4-cycle engine, 10W30 or 5W30 is going to work exactly the same. As you can see in the video, I'm using a Pennzoil high mileage 10W30 that I had left over from a recent oil change. If you're not sure how much oil your lawnmower needs, take the drain pan you used and then drain that oil into a 16 ounce or 24 ounce bottle just to get a rough idea of how much is in there. If you're somewhere in between, add a little bit more just to be safe. After you filled the oil back up, replace the dipstick and then remove the plastic bag from the gas tank. Start the lawnmower up, let it run for about 5 or 10 minutes, and make sure there's no leaks or odd sounds coming from the engine. Next, we'll be sharpening the blade. As you can see in the video here, the blade on this lawnmower is pretty dull and probably just needs to be replaced. But, for the sake of the video, I'm still going to show you how to sharpen it. All you need is this little drill attachment that you can pick up, again, at your local home improvement store, or purchase it on Amazon for about $6 to $10, and that'll include the balancer as well. It is a lot easier to sharpen the blade if you take it off, plus you'll be able to balance it after you're done. Sharpening is pretty self-explanatory. All you need to do is run the piece up and down the edge of the blade until you reach the desired sharpness. Afterwards, balance it on the included balancer that you bought in the kit and make sure both sides are even. Next up, let's clean the carburetor. I highly recommend watching the entire video before going out and doing it because there's some nuances you'll want to know before you get started. To get started on this job, make sure you at least have a couple pairs of nitrile gloves, a set of needle nose pliers, a couple different size wrenches, carburetor cleaner, a Phillips and flathead screwdriver, and a tune-up kit for your lawnmower if your lawnmower is more than a couple years old or it's running not as efficiently as it should be. I also want to point out that the process is going to be very similar for other lawnmowers, but it might not be exactly the same as I'm doing here. Anyways, let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is remove the plastic cover on the top of the lawnmower, and then remove the air filter like I showed you earlier. Next, there are 3 bolts that need to be removed in the housing. Remove those 3 bolts, and then pull away the housing and set that aside. Now you have access to the carburetor. The first thing you want to do is grab your needle nose pliers and then a plastic water bottle or your gas tank. There's a clip on the hose that runs from the gas tank to the carburetor. You'll want to remove that clip with the needle nose pliers, and be careful because the gas is going to come out fast. Quickly move that hose to the water bottle or gas tank and let it drain out completely. Next, remove the screw on the top of the black plastic piece that hovers over the top of the carburetor. Remove the spring that's also connected to this piece. Although I'm not doing this first in the video, there are 2 bolts that hold on the carburetor itself, and you'll want to loosen those up before removing the next spring. After you've loosened those bolts up, remove the spring that controls the throttle and allows air to go into the engine. Then, take off those loosened bolts, maneuver the assembly off of the wire that connects it to the rest of the lawnmower. The flap I'm showing here that moves back and forth is what is controlled by the throttle and allows more oxygen to reach the engine. Use a socket wrench to remove the bolt on the bottom of the carburetor body. After removing that bolt, you'll be able to pull off the fuel bowl. Inside the fuel bowl there might be some leftover fuel sitting there, so be careful. Inside, you'll find the float, which is the big white thing sitting there in the middle, the hinge pin, which is what holds the float on, and the inlet needle. Almost forgot to mention, the fuel bowl gasket, which is the black ring around the bottom of the carburetor body, also needs to be replaced if you have one of those kits. So just pop that off with a flathead screwdriver and put the new one on. You'll be replacing the hinge pin, the inlet needle, and the float, along with the little gasket that sits on the very inside of where the inlet needle goes in, which you can't see in the video here, but trust me, it's there. But before you put those replacement parts back in, take your carburetor cleaner and blast it in every single nook and cranny you can find inside the carburetor body. Be as generous as you want here because you really can't use too much. After you finish cleaning the carburetor, simply put it back together the same way you took it apart. Paying close attention to make sure that that inlet needle sits just right in the grooves of where it's shown on the float. Put that back in and then slide the hinge pin to hold it all together. Screw back on the fuel bowl, and that's it. Then, to reinstall the carburetor, we're going to start with putting on the 2 mounting bolts that hook onto the rest of the engine. Reconnect the fuel line, and then slide the clamp to hold it back on. Be sure to check the fuel line for any cracks or dry rotting in case it needs to be replaced. After putting those on, attach that screw that sits on top of that black piece there, and then reattach both of the springs. Then, reattach the housing for the air filter and screw that back on. Put your air filter back in, and then reattach the final screw, making sure it's snug but not over tight. Finally, put the cover for the engine back on. And last, but certainly not least, just do some regular old cleaning. Spray it down with a hose to get any mud, grass clippings, or anything else off of the deck. Flip it over, take a paint scraper to the bottom of it to make sure you get any of that caked on grass off as well. And then take a scrubbing pad, steel wool, or something to the top of the deck to get all of the mud and other debris off of it. I've included links in the description below for all of the stuff you'll need to do this, everything from some of the basic supplies to the carburetor cleaning kits and everything in between. So be sure to check out the description below, and if you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for future videos.